Thank you for everyone joining us tonight. My name is Sandra Flores, and I am on the Outreach and Oversight Committee. We have a full agenda. The plan is to get through the entire agenda. After each section, we're gonna pause and take a couple of questions. If there are more questions than one or two, we are gonna ask you to write it down on your card. Our goal tonight is to hear all the questions, answer as many as we can while we're here. And if we can't get it, if we don't have an answer right now, we will follow up with you. So the first thing to write down, everybody get ready to write it down in your notes, is my cell number. Because if we can't get a question here and we're gonna connect you to our city folks here that are represented, I want you to call me up to make sure that you ask the question, you try to connect, and if it's not answered, I am going to help you get an answer, okay? So Sandra Flores, my cell is 790, that's area code 559, 790-5852. 790-5852. My name is Sandra Flores. Okay, so we'll take a pause and take a couple of questions after each section, and I think we can do both. Hear questions, answer as many as we can, and get through the agenda. And with that, I'm going to first I'm up here, Sal Lucatero and I will be facilitating tonight, but I'm gonna ask Artie to come up and welcome us.
Welcome. Goodbye. No, I'm just filling in for Pastor Binion. He had a flight to Seattle this morning, so otherwise he would be doing this. But he asked me to just welcome you on behalf of Westside Church of God, and he asked me to say a quick prayer. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. Father God, thank you so much for this amazing season of Christmas, New Year's. We just had Thanksgiving, a time for family, for friends, for hopefully for some rest. But also a time for celebration for all that's going on, and not just TCC, but there's a lot going on in Fresno. There's a lot going on in Southwest Fresno. So we are thankful for it. We know there's a lot of work ahead of us. We know that a lot of us have different perspectives of things. Lord, just guide us and allow us to have patience and grace with each other. Allow us to understand that we all have a desire to see Fresno thrive, our families thrive, our neighborhoods thrive, our kids thrive. We know we are all on a path that's headed toward the same North Star. So we are looking forward to what is in store for 2019. But for tonight, just guide us through this conversation and allow us to learn and network and build connections. So we thank you so much. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, so everybody knows they'll have their cards in front of them to write questions down. We're going to take a couple of questions after each section. We're going to try to hear and answer all the questions in this session. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Sal.
Thank you, Sandra. So as Sandra did mention, we do have a full schedule today on the agenda, and we are going to do our best to get to listening to everyone and making sure that we're answering all of the questions. So one of the things that has come up is asking or figuring out a way on how the questions and comments that you put on your cards get answered. So we actually have in your handout packet a matrix that looks just like this with all of the questions, all of the comments that have been asked throughout the TCC process in these meetings. So these have also been placed on the TCC website. They're also included in the invites that are sent out about these meetings that we're having tonight. And these ones actually go back to December 13, 2017. And we have some from all of the meetings that we have had. Specifically, we're going to look at the ones from our last meeting, which was on September 12th, and they're in the last 2 pages of the packet. This is an example of the process that has been used to make sure that everything that we can't cover in these meetings is disseminated to everyone in the process. These two were questions that came in on comment cards, just like the ones that are on your table right now. One of them was, will the removal and not replacement of the Stanislaw Bridge affect any of the accepted projects? Another one was, how many affordable housing units for families are planned? And those are, there's responses there in that matrix. So this is a process that we're using right now. Of course, it can definitely be refined if we need to as we go along, but all of this information has been provided to all of you, to everyone involved in the process, and we will continue to do this. Like I said, if there are any questions today, please write them down. We want to make sure we get to all of them. But if we can't, we will make sure that we get those responses to the appropriate parties. And just a quick summary of what we did talk about at the September 12th meeting. We met here in this very room with a lot of you that are here tonight, and we were able to go through all the updates that we had from the Strategic Growth Council, any updates that were going on with projects. And one thing that did stand out from that last meeting was when we broke up into breakout groups. We had one group that met over here in regards to Chinatown projects. We had one in the back about Southwest Fresno projects, and then we had one over here on this side about downtown Fresno projects. And from that, I feel that a lot of us, at least on the Outreach and Oversight Committee, were really able to hear from the project leads, from those involved, what was going on with each of those projects. And I do want you to know that all of those comments, all of the concerns, all of the praises, anything it was that came from those breakout groups, even though we only gave a quick summary here afterwards, they were very thoroughly discussed in the Outreach and Oversight Committee, and all of those were brought forth, noted down, and we're trying to find ways to align all of those, the praises, the concerns, the questions, all of those things. So that was really what went down at the last meeting in September. And although we're not going to do breakout sessions today, we do, like I said, hope to hear from all of the different project leads and get updates on what is happening in each of those projects. But we'll talk about those as we move down on the agenda. So that really is the summary of our last meeting. So like Sandra said, at the end of each of our agenda items today, we're going to take a question or two, time permitting. We do have about 2 to 3 minutes right now. So are there any questions from any of you in regards to our last meeting or the process of the question matrix and responses or anything in that nature? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Artie will get it for you right now. Yeah, of course. Any questions about that meeting? Like I said, it was a very good meeting. I was here, and I thought everyone that participated did very well, and we were able to take some very, very useful information back from that. Okay, so we'll move on to our progress timeline and our status of our master grant agreement. We're actually going to lump those two together because we have handouts also in the packet that you received today. One of them is the Transform Fresno progress timeline. The other one is the Memorandum of Understanding by and between the City of Fresno and partners regarding administration of grant funding from the Transformative Climate Communities Program. Both of these documents are very important to where we are right now in the process of all the TCC, the Transform Fresno. So we'll start with the first one, which is the Transform Fresno progress timeline. In that one, we have everything that we've done from November 2016, which is when the California Strategic Growth Council selected Fresno as one of the 3 cities in their pilot TCC program. And it has everything listed up until where we are today and what we're anticipating even early next year. So if you review that document, it talks about how we chose our collaborative community, how we met regularly, how the community had a say in choosing projects and having a say in which projects were necessary here in Fresno and in our communities. And then it goes down to how the final projects were chosen, what was submitted to the Strategic Growth Council. And then we go down to like January 2018, when the SCG finally approved the $70 million award for the Transform Fresno project. And then it reviews all of our different all of the different SGC meetings. These meetings happened in Sacramento, and we received comments from them that came back to the City of Fresno, the Transformative Climate Community Group here, and of reviews that they wanted to adjust on what was submitted, on the plans, on all of those things. And those are noted there. There are, if you look at the bottom of page 2, some significant changes that did come along in the process. There's the bottom the bottom third of page 2. I would like to review those just so that everyone is aware of all of the changes or the major changes that have happened. So if we just go down that list, the first one is the high-speed rail connectivity project, which was eliminated in order to meet required budget cuts. The next one was Chinatown Housing, which was the fire tower adjacent to the housing development will not be allowed to operate as a condition of the funding. Another one was Changing Lives with Trees, with a final scope had been reduced to 295 trees. The next one was Fresno Food Commons, and in this one, the grocery store was eliminated from the scope of work. Project scope was changed to align with the committed leverage funding, and the high-efficiency water energy appliances component was eliminated due to ineligibility, and the community orchard component was reallocated ineligible parking lot costs to other eligible costs. Another one was the park at the MLK Magnet Core, which additional TCC funding was added to this project. So that one was actually increased from 4.5 million to 5.4 million. Another one is the ERP Toddler Park, and this one was a completion of an exposure risk assessment, which was a condition of funding, including the revision of the project scope to mitigate any measures, and this one is actually still subject to SGC approval. If we keep going there, the Inside Out Community Garden, the proposed location change to Sunset Community Center. Fresno City College, ineligible cost for constructing a surface parking lot was replaced with additional biking, trail amenities, green study spaces, and educational monument signs. And then the City of Fresno Grant Administration was changed from $494,354 to $1,138,091. And these are significant changes that have happened in the last year with all of our projects. We do have our project leads here today who can go in more in depth into these changes that have happened or anything significant that has happened since September. Since they are the ones working on this day in and day out, they are the ones who know exactly what it is that's changing in these projects, if there is anything that's changing, all based off of comments and reviews from the Strategic Growth Council, or SCG. The last thing on this one, which I said we were putting these two items kind of together on the agenda, is that SGC in January 2019 is expected to sign the master grant agreement. So the master grant agreement was already submitted to them. We're all just waiting on their approval for that, and then after that is when grants can be administered and the process can continue to go, but that's still anticipated January 2019. So that project timeline actually goes very detailed into what has happened since the beginning of the funding. We also included in your packet the MOU that was submitted, and this was the final MOU. It's 14 pages, but everything from how we got started in the process, the structure of the community stakeholders, how things are submitted to SGC, how the process has happened. is all outlined there in that MOU. And I believe that was actually part of what was provided to everyone with the invitation for the TCC meeting tonight, along with all of this other information. So that was a lot, but are there any questions on the project timeline, on the master grant agreement, or the MOU? Yes.
So when you jump to the major changes, if you went 2 bullets above that, there was a replacement of the workforce development. The reason I would think that's the major change is you explain that in more detail.
The transformative plans, which was the workforce development plan, so part of the MOU requires that we have a community engagement plan, a workforce development plan, and an anti-displacement plan. That one, it says the project leads were replaced due to a lack of evidence to fulfill the requirements of financial and management capacity. I am not sure if that one had to do with that actual plan, but if anyone on the Outreach and Oversight Committee could help me with.
I could read that. I wonder what
We're trying to, I don't have all the answers either, but.
They needed to build, SGC didn't feel like the workforce plans, they didn't have the proper capacity, historical capacity to do those plans. So they needed to find a partner that had that historical work experience that SGC was comfortable with. Am I correct with that? Yeah. Okay. So those were, let me look at the project list, I'm sorry. Voice Gladiator and Oscar Robinson's, right? Correct?
OLR Wizards, yeah. Both those guys are here.
And they can expand on that when they share their project update too.
Thank you, Artie. So yeah, as Artie said, there were a couple projects that didn't have the history behind them, or they needed extra things to meet the requirements that SGC was requiring of all of the projects. And those were probably some of the factors that they can talk about, or those were probably some of the factors that contributed to having to rearrange some of the projects, but they can talk about that when they give their update. Does that help a little? No? Okay. Well, hopefully by the end of this meeting, if those concerns are still there after we hear from everyone, we can definitely address those. Yes?
I have a question. When you talk about the major changes, you said the part that you never came back before, that had an additional TCC funding was added to this project, increased from 4.5 to 5.4. Who made that decision? Everybody don't know about that. So who made that decision and why did they make a decision like that?
So that one, that is a City of Fresno project, and we can definitely talk about that when we have that update of why the funding was changed, why it was increased to that amount in the TCC funding. But that's definitely something we could talk about during the project updates.
When you talk about the City of Fresno grant administration change from 400 to 1 million, you mean to tell me that they're getting 1.1 million the administration? Why is that?
So one thing that I do know is that there were changes in the way that SGC required for things to be budgeted. They had asked for initially, when projects were submitted, things that were not there, and then they changed along the way. And I know that some of those those administration fees were increased because of different things that SGC did require from the way that the process was being handled. And I know I believe in the MOU as well, there is where, like when it's discussing about the 3 different entities, the stakeholder structure, It talks about the community stakeholders, which is our guidance, which is our outreach and oversight committee. It talks about our lead applicant, which is the city of Fresno, and making sure that everything is administered the way that it is, and then the implementation, which is the lead applicants and partners of those. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that those things are outlined in here.
So you're saying that their outreach was the reason why that they added more money to it? So the outreach to the community was better?
But that outreach was what? I'm sorry?
I said, you're saying that the administration fee, the outreach portion of it, you mean to tell me they increased it because of the outreach that they had to do?
No. It wasn't because of the outreach. It was, thank you, Artie, for that. It was for different things that were required from SGC. So it wasn't because of outreach. It wasn't because of all of that. But it was because of the things that were required. I feel like
I think probably when is the city going to be sharing on the park project?
I don't think that's specific to the park project, but we can answer it right now.
Okay.
So as Sal's correctly stating, SGC required us to do certain things on the administrative side, which are all outlined both in the MOU, but they did request that the city increase their administrative cost. And in that, they requested a 2% allocation from each of the projects. That was an SGC request, and that's why it got changed. The original amount increased to what it looks like in the paperwork because of that SGC request of the city. They wanted to ensure that there was adequate staff to manage the $70 million plus grant, and so they requested of us to increase that.
Okay, I'd like to see that. But the thing is that when you guys first came up with this TCC, I say whoever the former mayor was, the thing is you guys knew this from the beginning. You were supposed to be up on this as a city because you was asking for this $70 million. So I'm trying to figure out how is it now, and I want to see just what you said. I want to see where that at the state level they told you guys to increase your funding because you have enough staff at the city. You've been having it for years. As a matter of fact, you guys just found some money. But the thing is, you guys been having money there and staff there to do that, to do what you're supposed to do. And I want to see that in writing. I want a copy of that because I want to see where that's at.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Gonna get my
Question?
exercise
Yeah,
tonight.
Artie's coming.
From my understanding, each project was taking 10% out for administrative, and what she's referring to, and Laura was saying that now that the 2%, the city was going to hire on, I guess, 3 staffs for a 3-year period. So that's what that overall $1 million overhead cost was for. But my other question would be is now our 10% that we kind of did in our budgets, would that now be reduced to 8%, or what do we do with the, that 10, or is it going to be to 12?
Take that back to the city. Do you understand that question?
Yeah, I do. So yes, that was the request of each project lead. We communicated that with each project. They all resubmitted their budgets to SGC directly. Some projects took it directly out of the 10% that they had already allocated. Others found other locations where they thought that they could skim, just depending on what their budgets looked like. So yes, well, I guess kind of. They could have taken it out of their 10%. They could have taken it out of the rest of their budget. It was upon each project lead to do so.
But for the 10% that was taken out of the projects, is that city administrative costs still encompassing that 10%? Or?
No, that's for each individual project to administer their program.
So then there's an extra 2% added on, is what we understand correctly?
Each project has included in it administrative costs for each project. It was the request of SGC to take 2% out of each total project. Where that came from was up to the project lead. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, just looking at trying to add up the numbers like apples and oranges, it's basically coming out 2% reduced. Well, 2% is taken out on top of what we already allocated within the budget itself already. So now we're looking at 12, it's like 12%.
But the 10% that you think was allocated was for your own project, to administer your own project for your own staff.
We already done that, and now she's saying there's another 2.
So it doesn't sound like we've got complete
Yes.
clarity, but we'll try to figure out if we can present something with more clarity for the future.
Hi. Dealing with the additional 2%, what does the 2% buy the community? How many accounting folks, how many planners does this money buy to make the system of cutting the checks back to the recipients? I mean, how many accounting people, how many planners are you going to hire or reallocate within your departments to this project, and for how long? And also, how come this wasn't done at the very beginning? Because traditional with state grants, you have oversight costs. And why wasn't this formulated at the very beginning?
So SGC has required that we hire on 2 full-time staff. So that money will go to hire 2 full-time staff for the program to administer the program. As far as other staff that's indirectly, that could be in-kind services, but that funding for administrative costs is going directly to 2 new full-time staff for 5 years, actually.
What's the job title of the 2 staff?
We don't know what the job titles are yet. We're thinking a program manager of some sort and some sort of accountant, like a management side, administrative side, and accounting side. And then, yes, Sandra, it's a 5-year term, not a 3-year term, so it is a longer term. There's also 3 years after that 5-year term of grant reporting that would still have to be done. So it is almost 8 years of work.
But that amount is covering.
Correct.
That amount is covering over 8 years. So we're not talking a year in addition to that.
Correct.
And what is your what is it? What is your closeout procedure going to be? Is that basically after the 5 years, your additional? Once the projects are completed and up and running, and you have oversight for a number of years, it's basically that's your closeout process.
So when the grant sunsets, when this project sunsets, what's the general procedure for the city to sunset?
What have you set up?
We'll follow the procedure that SGC has laid out.
All right, well, we have to move on the agenda, and we will take more questions at the end. We will take more concerns at the end. But for right now, we would like, I know that all of the project leads were asked to be here today and give a short report. So each of the project leads will have about a minute to a minute and a half to report to everyone here any updates that have happened, any changes that have happened, anything that is going on with the project. And I have a list of all of the projects and who is the project lead on them. So I'm going to be calling you up one at a time and give you a minute to a minute and a half to just give us any updates. If there aren't any, you're more than welcome to come up here and say that you don't have any updates.
And maybe we could get the first 3 up.
Yeah,
ready.
definitely.
Yes.
So we're gonna get the Chinatown mixed use, which is Sheila and Christina, the Chinatown P-bid, and then the EOC partnership for energy savings, which is David. So
Can we have those 3 groups come up so we can get started? Yes. And the next 2, who else?
it was the city of Fresno for Chinatown P-bid and Fresno EOC, David.
Is David here?
No, and then we have
No.
Grid Alternatives, which is Jesse and Tom.
Or Jesse and Tom? Okay, great.
Okay, so if we could get you to come up here and we could just give a,
Yes.
Perfect. And we just have you wait right here. Perfect. Sheila? Christina. Perfect.
Good evening. I'm Christina Husbands. I'm with the Fresno Housing Authorities. We're the developer for the Chinatown Mixed Use Project. Since our last meeting, the updates that we have is we've been having community meetings with the Chinatown neighborhood to discuss potential facade improvements and things that could better help the project integrate into the community and resemble some of the historical uses in the neighborhood. So we've had a couple of those community outreach meetings. We've been working with SGC and the city on finalizing, the language that's going to be going into the sub-agreements for execution. So we hope that those will get finalized within the next month or so. And then as soon as we have the sub-agreements executed, then we can move forward with finalizing our design and our financing for the project. So that's everything going on with us.
Any questions for Christine? Yes. Okay.
All right, then we have someone from the Chinatown PBID.
Chinatown PBID. Yeah, you want to go up? Yeah, let's go up so they can see you.
So we'll be meeting with Chinatown Foundation in early January once we sign the master grant agreement to go ahead and start talking about the PBID formation and feasibility study. And that's the only real update is that we're ready to get going.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any questions?
Nope. All
Okay,
right.
great.
Do we have anyone from the Fresno EOC?
Not here yet? EOC, okay.
Okay.
We'll go on to the next one.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jesse Again from Grid Alternatives, and we are with project number 13, the Grid Solar Collaborative. So just as a very, very brief update, we have been meeting regularly with our partners that are going to be working closely with us. Tonight we have Chia from Stone Soup, Fresno. You want to stand up, introduce yourself? And then we also have Jensen from the Fresno Center that's here with us. So we've been working and meeting pretty regularly in terms of how we're planning our program and how we're going to be implementing in terms of outreach to families and providing solar services to up to 60 homes in Southwest Fresno. We also have submitted a final work plan to SGC, which included our revised budgets. And well, we also figured out a way to reduce and deal with the additional administrative fee by actually reducing our administrative fee from 10 to 3%. But the trade-off was that we cut no program money. So all the dollars that will be coming to Grid will be going directly into the community, which we thought that was a win-win. And so we're also waiting for the master grant agreement to be signed by the city of Fresno and Strategic Growth Council. And then we've also identified some existing leads and created what's called a scattergram map of the initial installations that we're planning beginning in January. So that pretty much sums it up. Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a Clean Shared Mobility Network. That was Tara Lynn, Francisco, Betsy. Yes. And then also we have Darlene from TCC Connector Project and Laura, again from for MLK Activity Center, ready to go. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Whoa. Clean Shared Mobility Network, project number 19. We don't have any major updates. We took the 2% cut. We had not put 10% into grant administration. We already had a lean grant administration budget, so we took our cut across the board.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay. So TCC Connector Project. Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand. Thank you, Ms. Curry.
I would just like to know if that includes the combination of projects. Is that a combination of more than one project you're referring to?
No, ma'am, I don't understand your question.
Did
We're
you
in
combine
project
with
number
another-
19.
Did you combine with some other groups with your project?
We were asked by the city of Fresno to include project number 21 in our project because they were complementary, but they had their own budget that they brought to our budget.
I was really inquiring as to whether or not, when you mentioned the cut, was that across the board for those persons associated with your project?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay.
We did a cut all the way across the board. I apologize, I didn't understand the context of your question. When the budgets were combined, the total number was combined, and the 2% cut went all the way across the board.
Thank you, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We got
Yes.
another question here.
Project 21 is Early Readers Preschool. They are doing a park and ride, so we integrated them into our Clean Shared Mobility Network. They will have electric vehicle supply equipment, and actually kind of a flagship location because they're going to power theirs. They're the only one in the network where their EVSE will be powered by solar. So we're real excited about being able to build that out.
Hello, yes, as part of that project and reading that one of the major changes is that early readers program, excuse me, is still subject to SGC approval since some of the 2% comes across the board and some of the money was changed. Is that going to be reassessed if their project is not approved by SGC, or how is that going to be worked
So
out?
first of all, Matthew, let me say object to the characterization that you continue to utilize, that something in the money was changed. That project came with its own budget, as we have discussed many times. So no money from the original Project 19 budget was allocated to that project. When
Okay.
we did our budget cut, we did the budget cut across the board, all categories. We just cut 2%. We had a very lean, as I said, administration budget to begin with, so we couldn't take the full 2% in project administration. Does that address your question?
Some of it, yes.
Well, let's take the rest of it. What part was not addressed?
I think that I have to address it to Sandra. I'll call her and I have to.
So if there is a question about the project, let's.
That's a different project, that's not being Project 19. So your comment regarding the mitigation is not this project? It's
right.
the toddler park, which is project, I'm blanking right now, but it's.
22.
Thank you.
Oh,
So,
my apologies. I thought we were talking. I
Yeah.
thought that was 21 that was mentioned in the.
Nope, not at all.
So the early readers project is project 21. Is that correct or am I incorrect?
there
the
was
park and
two
play.
projects in the beginning with the same organization, half of which was a park, half of which was electric charging stations and some stuff. The electric charging stations portion, scope and budget got added to Project 19, Terrace Project. The park is still its own and was its own project. The park is what has the mitigation assessment condition on it.
Got you.
that-
So when the electric charging stations were added to project 19's budget, that budget would have increased or that budget stayed the same?
That budget
budget stayed-
increased by the budget that was brought by number 21, when the total budget amount was $467,000 prior to it being added. Subsequently to that, we had to take a cut, and that budget was reduced from $467,000 to $407,000. Since that first cut, we were asked to cut an additional 2% in the most recent cut, and it has received an additional 2% cut.
Perfect. So, and we'll be able to see all of that in the overall budget of the project.
What do you mean in terms of the overall? We've
So if-
reported
if-
our,
If each project has been asked to take a cut, those cuts should be should be shown in those budgets.
The city's reporting the changes in the document.
Okay.
They will be reflected on in their budgets. They have it.
Right, okay.
Yeah, thank you. We have to move on to the
Yes,
next project
thank
because
you.
we got to move on with time. But we're going to move on to number 22, which is the Annandale Mode Shift project.
And
evening,
we'll,
everybody.
I just want to get 23, project 23 and 24 ready, TCC connector, MLK Activity Center.
My name is Francisco Nunez. I'm with Self-Help Enterprises doing the Annandale Mode Shift project. Like all the other projects, we're working with SGC and finalizing our budgets and also the master agreement and the sub-agreements for that. Additionally, we already have 30% plans for those sidewalks, bike lanes, and signage that would go with our project. And so once we get the final agreement with SGC, the state and the city, then we can move forward with the final plans on that. In addition, we have additional phases for our project, single-family homes and multifamily homes. And we already acquired all the funding for a multifamily phase, and that we should start construction on that in March, which will start construction of the Mode Shift project also roughly at the same time.
I'm just curious as to why it has the title that it has, because it doesn't indicate, by looking at this for somebody new coming in or somebody that hasn't been at all the meetings, that this doesn't include housing. So I'm just wondering why it didn't.
The TCC funding is strictly for the street improvements along Annandale between Elm and Martin Luther King Boulevard, which would be sidewalks, bike lanes, and signage for that. The housing side of it is funding that we acquired from other sources that are not TCC.
Okay, the only reason I asked that question is that I was at HCDC meeting when the issue of the housing project came up. And one of the questions that they were asked is why wasn't that project brought to the community? And the first thing out of their mouths was that it was brought up at the TCC meetings, and therefore that's why they didn't have any additional community meetings about that project.
We had additional community meetings for our project. Our housing project was developed prior to the TCC funding coming out, and we had community meetings at Mariella Brown Center early in 2017 when we started the planning process through the city.
So basically, I got some misinformation at the ACDC meeting then.
I'm not sure who gave you that information, but more than likely.
On that note, it was Bessie McGovern.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you know Betsy, right?
Yes, that is my boss.
Okay, that came out of Betsy's mouth.
Okay.
So she said the statement that really ticked us off is that they're using TCC dollars for that. And we asked the question why you guys didn't come back to the community like you said you were and see if that's something that the community wanted. You guys never did that.
We are not using TCC funding for the housing
Well,
project.
she said it, and you need to talk to her. She gave me her card.
Okay. Well, just to clarify, we are not using any TCC funding for the housing project. All the TCC funding is for the street improvement projects, sidewalks, curb and gutter, bike lane, signage.
And she also was saying that those are supposed to be senior housing that you're putting there, right?
Correct.
And that's what I'm saying. So that's what came out of her mouth. And they're asking for $2.5 million. And the HCDC, she said that you guys met with the city council before you even went to HCDC. So if there's a misunderstanding, it's on record up at the city. This is what your boss stated.
There's quite a different process that go along with the approval of the project. In order for us to move forward with the initial entitlements of the project, we go through the planning process, the entitlement process, and during that process, we had the community meetings. The HCD funding, the home funding that we received from the city for that project, is a separate application process than the entitlement process for the project.
Okay, so I want to let you know, because I was at the meeting, what you're talking about at Mariella, and you guys said that you was going to come back because there wasn't that many community people there, and we asked you, did you guys circulate
those petitions, you told us you was gonna do it and you never did.
We had 2 meetings once the project is under construction and we start recruiting for residents. And
That's what I'm saying. You did not include West Fresno, so you can babble all you want to. You didn't do it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just one more.
Sure.
The property, was that property obtained through the city, the redevelopment agency or the successor agency?
The successor agency owns that property, and we have a development and disposition agreement to develop the site.
Okay, everybody, I want you to know that that money, that housing, that property belongs to all of us because it came out of our tax dollars. So if you weren't aware of that, that's how that money came, that's how that property was bought, and that's how it's owned by us, technically, because it came up. If anybody that lives in this area that pays property taxes, some of that money was sliced off the top and given to redevelopment, and then redevelopment purchased a lot of land after they came in and said they were gonna redevelop and didn't do that, and now that's the property that they're turning over or selling to other people to build on.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
What Francisco has just laid out, one of the things that we've been hoping for and working towards is the layering of other resources alongside TCC. So Francisco could have just reported on the sidewalks and the street improvements. Instead, the big good news story is there's going to be new affordable housing, new senior housing, and new market rate housing in an area, that is going to be changing the community. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah, just to clarify that, all our housing is affordable housing. We do not do any market rate housing.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to the TCC Connector project.
Is Darlene here? Or that's Laura?
All right, the TCC Connector project is a leverage-only project, so there's no TCC funding. It was part of the city's match commitment. We've been successful in securing a federal grant for operating the one of 2 routes, and then we've also been successful in receiving a state grant for electric buses. The grants will be executed early next year, so we're moving forward on everything as was noted in the original piece. We are still hoping to get funding for the second of the 2 routes that we submitted for, and we'll continue to do so through other funding sources to make that commitment.
Yes, Ms. Curry. Artie's getting you the, yes.
23, thank you.
Yeah, the TCC Connector project for increased transit.
So any questions for 23, Project 23? Project 24, are you on deck? Oh, yes, Sabrina.
24, you can move on up to the stage.
So question for 23, and I'm not finding number 23 now, but where those routes serve Southwest Fresno as well? Okay. And where would they connect?
Send you if you'd like.
Okay. But can you just give us a brief overview of where they're going to connect here in Southwest Fresno?
It'll go to the downtown area and then pass through like the MLK Activity Center and then down towards the Annandale Mode Shift project. I don't know the exact streets off the top of my head, but I can definitely get you a map.
Okay. And that'll be Elm Avenue, the Elm corridor? No?
Again, I don't know the exact streets, but I can definitely get you a map.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to number 24.
24.
24 is the off-sites at the MLK Activity Center, so that's Church, Jensen, MLK Avenue, and Walnut. The city of Fresno is currently working with the developer in that area to master plan that area, and we're working through a development agreement to do the construction out there, and so we're, again, moving forward on those items to build out that area with not just the off-sites, but the complementary college, the park, and then some future housing, another school, and some other amenities.
Any questions? Project 28, can you get ready while we're scanning for questions? Do we have Project Mariposa Plaza? Okay, great. And then after Mariposa Plaza, Project 29, are you on deck? Clean Energy Park and Play? Okay, great.
So Mariposa Plaza number 24, there are no changes. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but there There hasn't been any change.
It's Project 28 Mariposa Plaza, right?
Yes.
Project 28, yes. Okay, no changes to the project, no questions for this project? All right, great. Project 29, Clean Energy Park and Play? Is Tara here? She just left? Okay. That's not her project, but Project 29, Clean Energy Park and Play. We have Paul T., Jim Tate.
I'm not Paul, but I am Candace Troutman. He's at work and
Okay.
stepping in for him. Sorry
Okay.
about that confusion. The main update is that we're actually waiting for SGC to send us specifics of how they want us to, what they want us to include in the health risk assessment. And so we're actually ready to go. We just want to know what those specifics are, and we'll definitely follow suit.
Okay. Any questions? Project 30, Changing Lives with Trees. There we go. And Project 31 on deck, Yosemite Village.
Sorry, I've lost my voice. Shelby McNabb, City of Fresno. There are no updates. We submitted all revisions to the state, including plant pallets and whatnot, and we're just waiting to get the go-ahead once we get the agreement.
Any questions?
Where do you think have you guys planned out where the trees would be planted?
There's been approximately 4 locations identified. One is near the Habitat for Humanity housing. There's a long park strip there. One is near Tupman Park. And then the other 2 are slipping my mind, but I could provide those locations to Laura to share with the group.
Okay. And all 295 will be in those specific areas?
Yeah, there's approximately 4 locations
Okay.
that they'll all be placed.
Thanks, Shelby.
Yeah.
Great, we got Project 31 then, if there are no questions. Project 32, Park at MLK. That's going to be Laura again? But yes, after. I'm just on deck. We want people on deck.
I'm Tom with Yosemite Village Community Garden Permaculture Farm. We've actually broken ground. We've got our water lines run on the site, and right now we're coordinating about kind of an gravel access pathway running from the north to the south side of the project. That's about it right now.
Any questions?
No questions?
Okay, great. All right, the Park at MLK. After this, Inside Out Community Garden, Project 33. Do we have somebody here from Project 33? Okay, great. We have on deck.
So the Park at MLK, after the city took its project under major changes, the high-speed rail connectivity project, that $7 million project, there have been some significant multi-million-dollar cuts in some of the projects. The city wanted to make sure that those projects were made whole, and so we eliminated one of our projects. We intend to eventually fulfill that project, that $7 million project, with alternative funding. So we reinvested much of that money back into the projects that we felt needed to be made whole, and we added $1 million to the park project because that project is contiguous to the community college project. The community college had ramped up its investment from $10 million to $70 million. And we're very excited about that project, as we are about all the projects. We felt like to add to that energy, we needed to get this park project done, and this brings us, by adding that additional funding, that brings us to a point of being able to complete that project. Any questions? Bo?
So everybody can hear.
Prior to the week of September the 25th, where we had all of the projects at their review sessions with the city and the state, there was an overage of $7 million. So what was cut during that time that allowed not only for us to get under that amount, compensate for the additional 5% that the state was asking for, and still be able to add an additional $1 million to this project? So it seems like it was a lot of cuts that happened. What were those cuts?
The primary cut was that $7 million project. There were some, at one point, the community college was cut $4 million. The, Warren, your project, the Food Commons project was cut by $1.5 million, something like that. 1.6 million. So we worked very hard with these two projects in particular to restore those. Also balancing out the fact that we had 5% that SGC jumped on us for their administrative costs. So bottom line is we're all kind of settled out now, and one of the good news aspects of that is we get to get this park done faster, along with the exciting community college project.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We got another question. HH.
Are you aware if the Parks Department is going to undergo a public process in developing the park itself, and inviting community to kind of give input on what they would like to see there?
So that's what we normally do, and I'm sure that's Laura's shaking her head, and that's all I need. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, H. We've got Project 33, Inside Out, right? And then after that, Project 34, Grocery Store Distribution Center. Do we have some? Yes, great.
I'm sorry. Good evening. I'm Nia. I represent Inside Out Community Garden. Project 33, no changes. I just relocated to Sunset Community Center. So, any questions?
Will it be in that back section of where the dirt field is behind the building?
There are planter boxes there already, yes.
Yeah.
So it'll be in the back.
Okay.
Any other?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Project 34, and then 35, Fresno City College. Do we have? Okay, great. On deck. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Warren with Food Commons Fresno, and I'd just like to make a clarification. Within the major changes, it states that the grocery store has been eliminated. So the grocery store has been eliminated from TCC funding. The grocery store has not been eliminated from our project plans. We're going to go through the process of entitlement sometime in first quarter of 2019. Our plan still is within 18 months to 2 years, which it has been originally, to break ground on a grocery store. So because we could not have the full funding or the full leverage to show that we could build an $8 million project, we could not keep the grocery store in it. So we had to reduce the scope of the TCC project, but the grocery store, rest assured, is still a part of our plan. That's what we're going to in front of the city for entitlement for, and we are planning to build a grocery store. We have basically spent the fourth quarter rearranging our budgets, rearranging our work plans, and figuring out how in the world we could take money that was ineligible and projects that were ineligible and put them into buckets that were eligible. And I think we've managed to do that. I think we've managed to save, as H said earlier, we were down to about $200,000 to $300,000 after the meeting on the 24th, and we're now back up to $1.83 million, assuming that we get everything signed. So that's where we are. Does anybody have any questions about the Food Commons plan? Yes, it is. So I'm moving from Chicago to Fresno as soon as I can sell my house in Chicago. So I will be here to lead the Food Commons and have been here pretty much full time since the 1st of August.
Welcome to Fresno.
Thank you. All right, any questions about the project itself? Yes.
Oh, I see. Yes.
That's a great question. So the whole project is about $8 million from the plans that we have right now. The 1.8-ish million from TCC will be part of a capital stack, so it'll be things like opportunity zone credits, new market tax credits, another round of public investment. We did a direct public offering round in the fall. We're planning another round of public investment in early 2019 of which you can all be a part of. So we will continue to kind of stack money from different sources to get us to the $8 million level so that we can fully complete the grocery store, the orchard, the distribution center, the community center, everything that's a part of our plan. And I'm happy to share with anybody. We have a pretty extensive set of plans already, and I'm happy to share with anybody as a PDF document if you'd like to have those.
Is your organization a nonprofit or is it for-profit?
I represent the for-profit side, but Food Commons here in Fresno is both. It's both a nonprofit trust, which owns the for-profit company. So my boss is the president of the trust.
It's a 501c3?
The trust is, yes. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, great. So can I get, right now coming up with City College, Project 36 is up next, and 37. Please get on deck.
Hi, I'm George Cummings, representing the Fresno City College Southwest Fresno Satellite Campus. And we are continuing to work with our architects, SIMPBK, to refine the site plans and also the elevations, the floor plans we've been working through with faculty. And we plan we've done several community outreach meetings to sunshine those and to get your input. And we have another round once we get a little farther in the process and have a finalized product there. Any questions? All righty.
Okay. Thank you. We've got Project 36 up now, and then 37. You're 36? Right up there.
Good evening. My name is Oscar Robinson with the West Fresno Advanced Transportation Technology Training Program, and we don't have any changes to our program itself. Any questions?
Partnership that you have with the WIB?
So in order to qualify for to be an applicant for the funding, we needed to align with a stronger administrator. It doesn't affect the program itself. The WIB came aboard. Is anybody from the WIB here? Okay. The WIB came aboard and gave us a good opportunity, and they're going to help administrate the project. The Workforce Investment Board.
Okay, any questions? All right, great. Okay, we got Project 37 coming up, and then Project 16 and 17, Chinatown Urban Greening on deck.
My name is Bo Reynolds. I'm the Executive Director of Voice, and I'm with the Voice Gladiator Program. Over these last few months, we've experienced some challenges as well as identified some opportunities. One of the first challenges was during the week of September the 24th and 25th when we had the project review phases. Voice was assigned the last day, the last slot, 5 p.m. on the 25th. At that time, we were given 72 hours to be able to produce information showing that we could administer the program. That 72 hours, we stayed up probably about 60 of those hours, reaching out to partners, and where we were able to finally find a partner who had been assisting us in the past. They are a youth action project, YAP, and they have extensive experience in administering grants of this type. We also are facing the challenge of not being sure where startup costs will come from. We've been working with Assemblyman Rambler's office as well as Assemblyman Eduardo Garcia to find out where we can get some startup cost. But we won't be eligible to do that until we have our final review, our final budget review, and our final project grant amount. We have not received that of yet. We've been reaching out to SGC steadily and constantly, but we are being told that that will happen sometime in the first quarter of next year. What that means is that we're unable to seal the final partnership with our curriculum providers, such as Fresno City College, Fresno State University, Washington Unified School District, and we need to be able to do that so that they can set up their schedules moving forward. Also, we need to have that information to be able to hire on our other staff who may take positions elsewhere because we've been waiting since the end of 2017 to really bring them on board. Some of the opportunities that are coming up is, number one, the development of the workforce plan. We've been talking with SGC, and we believe that the 3 workforce projects that are funded by TCC should gain priority in placement of those individuals in that workforce plan. We also have been asking and working with the city to make sure that Voice and the other TCC-funded workforce projects are named specifically in the PLA that the city has with the building trades that governs all of the city's TCC-funded projects. And lastly, as far as an opportunity, would be the capacity building that working with YAP brings. So we should be able to reach deeper and have a broader recruitment plan to be able to reach all of the communities that are spelled out in the Cal EnviroScreen 2.0. Are there any questions?
Bo, what type of support are you getting on that particular front? I mean, as making specific connections and having it be, I guess, maybe contractual, that those of us who are developing construction-related projects are actually working to, hire folks who are coming out of workforce development.
Well, thank you, Warren. So Warren and I have been talking, and there has been a tentative partnership so that we can figure out the build opportunities on this project and be able to train our folks to be able to fit into those jobs, as well as to work with contractors and others who are necessary to make this happen. And we are open to doing that with all TCC projects. If you have a build required in your project, please reach out to the Voice Gladiator program so we can talk about creating direct pathways for those placements. And I thank you for that question, Warren. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I thank you for your time.
Okay, great, thank you. Projects 16 and 17, you're up, and then after project 15. Do we have somebody here from Project 15?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Scott Seam with the City of Fresno Public Works Department. My department in design services, we're handling the Chinatown Urban Greening Project. We'll be designing that in-house. I don't have an update to give you tonight. We're just waiting for the agreement and to be kicked off on the design, but we're ready to go. Any questions?
We have a question over here.
In regards to the design, are you going to have a community process for that, for input, or what is that going to look like?
Yes, we would have community meetings of some sort. I'm not sure. I wouldn't be handling that, but I would certainly be a part of it.
Any additional questions? Okay, great. And then nobody's here from Project 15? Okay, nobody's here from Project 15. We got through all the projects.
Perfect, awesome, thank you. It's really informative to be able to hear from all of the project leads and hear what is going on with the projects, how they're moving forward, what the challenges are, what the eye-opening experiences are, what the opportunities are coming forward. So it's really, really great to hear from all of you and be able to answer those questions and have those things addressed. So that closes that part of the agenda with our project updates. We're going to move on to the other one since we're a little bit behind schedule. But we're going to move on to Arthur Moya so he could talk to us a little bit about our Outreach and Oversight Committee nomination process. So hand it over to you.
All right, good evening. So again, my name is Arthur Moye. I am on the Oversight Committee, and I represent Chinatown. I own Full Circle Brewing in Chinatown, and I've been a part of this process since the very beginning. From the beginning, I have recognized that there has been extra effort to make sure that this process is as transparent as possible. And we've reached out to you guys several times in this open public meeting to ask, how can we make this process a little bit more transparent? So originally, the Outreach and Oversight Committee consisted of 7 members, 7 members from Southwest Fresno, 3 members from Chinatown, and 3 from downtown, and the chairperson. So from the feedback that we received from you, we wanted to add more people to the committee that were nominated from the original 164-member steering committee. So from that open nomination process, we received 13 nominations. And from those 13 nominations, 3 are for new positions, and 1 is for an additional position in downtown Fresno because we had a resignation. So from those 13 nominations, the current committee reviewed all the applications, and we gave preference to individuals that lived and worked in the communities that were represented. And of those 13, it kind of made it easy because we narrowed it down to 2 or 3 positions for each location, each of the 3 represented communities, and basically identified 2 from each of those communities and submitted it to the mayor's office for review and interview. And those interviews were conducted, and we have selected from the 13 nominations 1 individual from Southwest, Chinatown, and 2 individuals from downtown. And I have those results here. So for Southwest, it is Ivanka Saunders. For Chinatown, Barbara Wilson. For downtown, Jordan Gustafson and Sabrina Kelly. So we're going to follow that same process, opening up to this committee that's been involved, or the steering committee that's been involved since the beginning, for future nominations if we have resignations or want some expansion of the committee. That's all I have right now. Any questions?
So you're only going to look at people that work and live in the specific areas? Or are you going to consider people that work? Because I mean, I work downtown.
Right.
I have over 20 years of planning experience in the state managing grants like this.
Right. No,
And-
we would look at that too in the future, and that it seemed like the criteria to get the people who are most vested in their communities were people who lived and worked in the community, and that's what we went with. And it turned out a lot of the people who were nominated did have those qualifications.
Because I also, according to the map in the package, I also I live in a different part of the community, but not in the downtown community.
Right, and I'd say
So I'm trying to figure out why I was passed over.
right, and I would say that when we have additional positions open up, we're going to use that same criteria. So I'd reapply then as well.
I also would like to say congratulations, since I know a couple of those people personally, so congratulations to you. My concern is that this is a selection process and not an election process. And as I voiced at one of the earlier meetings, I believe that in the full form of transparency, there needs to be some type of election process from those of us who participated in the vote to get us to where we are now, and not just people submitting applications and then being selected, because there's a difference. And so that was where my question came from earlier. I still would like to see some type of electoral election process of those of us who are vested in it, involved in this.
Okay.
Thank you, Darren.
And I think that the great thing about this is the nomination process yielded 13 individuals, right? And of those 13 individuals, the ones that are selected were the ones that lived and worked in Fresno. And once we narrowed that down, it was not really much of a selection on our part. It was like, who's lived and worked? These are the people that you want, and those are the folks that we put in those positions. And for anybody else that wasn't selected post-interview, are actually going to be involved in other capacities.
If I may, I totally agree with you, okay, that this was a great selection process.
Mhm.
When I brought that question up earlier, I'm saying that there should be an election process. There should be, go through the same process of interviews, applications, interviews, some type of criterion and boil it down to a certain particular point, but there needs to be an elected process of the body who represented the vote. The 120 whatever people who voted on these projects should have an opportunity to elect their representatives.
So I could take a
some
note
portion
on that and bring it back to the committee.
Okay.
Who made the decision ultimately, and who was involved in the interview process?
So the original decision was made amongst the oversight committee, and we narrowed it down to 2 or 3, depending on how many applicants we had, and we submitted those qualified candidates to the mayor's office, and that's who interviewed both of the candidates and finalized of the people we submitted who actually was selected.
So specifically, who was involved in the interview with the mayor? I'm assuming the mayor made the final decision?
Yes.
So who was in the interview with the mayor?
I'm not sure particularly who was in that exact meeting.
Could
but
you find
definitely
out and share it with the group?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Did you want to respond to that at all?
H, do you know, was it just the mayor? I mean, maybe somebody knows already.
The person on the mayor's staff that handles all of his appointments to various commissions and boards. That's John Ellis.
John Ellis, H, and the mayor.
Other questions?
All right. I'm gonna-
What is the oversight committee doing to, I guess, better inform the community? Because there's some people maybe, not happy with the process as far as maybe giving a better clarity, since, the oversight is a transparency to the project.
Right, I say we're doing things exactly like this meeting, and also answering all questions that you guys come up with, and trying to get through every single question that is arised. And if we don't get to that question here, we follow up with it. So I think being transparent, having these meetings, having nominations for additional oversight committee members, and just that's basically it.
To follow on that question, will the future outreach and oversight committees be open to the public and in a, kind of a easily accessible location and time so the public can join those meetings?
Well, as far as you're talking about the nomination process for?
No, the specific, like the meetings that you guys have.
Our current meetings, when we're scheduled.
Well, I think just for efficiency's sake, like we're meeting on a pretty consistent basis, and then we come together in this meeting to communicate to the public, as far as I understand the process.
I also, as I understand it, I mean, this is, this committee is, it's part of the mayor's office. So we are reflective of that process. So I understand, so our current meetings, your question is, will the public be able to join the meetings that are scheduled for this oversight? I think that is something we will put on our discussion and get an answer for you to see if that's a possibility in the future, in the spirit of transparency, deeper transparency.
I mentioned that because there are already several existing committees right now, which fall even if they need to or they don't, they fall already the Brown Act, where they are open to the public. They're in the evening. They're usually in accessible locations. So like the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, all of like the HCDC, the Planning Committee. So like these committees that are, some have a little bit more power than others, but still they're already very much very open and transparent with folks to where they can very much engage in those processes. And I think that's something. I think several people here would appreciate to participate in those conversations that everyone in that committee is having. Even if they may or may not have direct input, they can at least participate, hear, listen, and at least comment, and you guys can directly hear from the folks. So for those who may not necessarily live in the community and may not experience the day-to-day ongoings here, they can at least hear from the actual residents.
No, I hear what you're saying, and that decision would be above my pay grade, and my pay grade is free.
One thought I have, yes, but one thought I have as a committee member is if you are interested in our meetings, please write your name down and say, I am interested on one of the note cards so that we can collect that, and then that is part of our discussion. We will bring it and get an answer for you as we move forward. So at least the committee members get a sense of who is actually interested in that, and it could be part of our discussion.
All right.
Does somebody else have? Okay.
Yes, I had a question in terms of the nominations process. I know that you had extended an open invitation to the room, but is it still a standing position of the city that grantees or vendors cannot participate as a representative on the Outreach and Oversight Committee?
Yes, that is a standing to avoid conflict of interest.
That's actually written in the grant documents. So great. Anything else? All right. I'll give it back to Sal.
Thank you. And as Arthur and Sandra mentioned, the Outreach and Oversight Committee meetings happen once a month. These big community meetings are actually part of our meetings. So we have this meeting in lieu of our monthly meeting this month to get exactly that input. The comments. This is where we want to listen. So if we can do more than that, we're more than happy to take that into discussion and consider how to do that even more and have that deeper transparency. But these are part of those meetings that we are having. So moving on with that, there are more ways to get involved aside from being on the Outreach and Oversight Committee or coming to these meetings. There are many other things that we can be doing in our communities. So to talk a little bit about those, we have some of our Outreach and Oversight Committee members who are going to share that. So we'll start with Morgan Doizaki, who's going to talk to us about Chinatown, right? Ways to get involved in Chinatown. What's going on? What meetings are happening? Did I catch you off guard?
Hi, I'm Morgan Doizaki, board chair for Chinatown Fresno Foundation. I'm also with Central Fish Company in Chinatown. We just opened up, we just did an open house. We have a new location. It's our 1433 Kern Street. We kind of turned it into a cultural gallery too that's going to rotate the cultures that started up in Chinatown. So you guys are more than welcome. If you guys could leave, I guess, emails to...
put them on the note cards.
Or yeah, put them on the note cards if you want to get some of the newsletters that we send out. But I hope you guys, you know, Chinatown's making a comeback. This TCC's really given us like kind of new life and new hope. So just kind of hope, keep your ears open for Chinatown. Any questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Then we're going to invite up Artie, who's going to talk to us a little bit about how to get more involved in Southwest as well.
So we have a series of meetings in Southwest Fresno on different topics. We have community neighborhood meetings in the Kirk neighborhood, in the King neighborhood. All this information, I'm just going to summarize it, but email me, call me. And Columbia, Kirk, King, and soon West Fresno Elementary. We have meetings that'll be coming up on a planning process with the Housing Authority around Edison. Those aren't in place yet, but they will be kicking off in the first quarter of 2019. We have a Southwest Fresno youth focused meetings that are for organizations that are working with preschool through high school. If you want to be a part of those meetings, let me know. We will be probably meeting about every other month in Southwest Fresno on that topic. So if you want specific Southwest Fresno meetings, whether it's their community meetings or initiative type meetings, just my cell phone number is 250-6860. I think everyone in Fresno has my cell phone number, so I have no problem giving it out. And then my email is artie@everyneighborhood.org.
Any additional questions for Artie about ways to get involved in the community here? Okay, well, thank you all for your patience and time. We are going to adjourn if there are no additional questions. The committee members will be here after to chat or take any comments, and thank you for being here today.